Welcome, students. By the end of this class, you'll have a simple plan to manage your studies, hobbies, and rest. Let's learn how to be smart with time, because the students who manage time top the class. Welcome, students. Lecture 15 is here, and today we're talking about time management, study plus play balance. Ready? Let's begin. Chapter 15, Mastery of Time Within. You have mastered time rhythm generation and living according to the calendar. Next comes the time for the ultimate stage, mastery of time internally. This chapter is not about any time management strategies at all. It is about the topic of identity, clarity, confidence, and emotion mastery. Here you no longer follow time, but you become its master yourself. You are not merely following the calendar, but you become a person who radiates power from inside and influences everything outside. 15.1 Identity creates time, not just strategy. We spend most of our time looking for better gadgets, better apps, and better tricks to take control over our time. However, strategy without an identity is inherently unstable. What we really need is not just a new planner, but a new image of ourselves. After all, if we continue to think of ourselves as messy, unpredictable, or unfocused, then nothing can help us. Time change happens in terms of identity. It is not only that people who create time do things differently, but rather that they perceive themselves in a different way. They say to themselves, I am a person who respects my time. I am a person who sticks to what he promises. I am not late, but thoughtful. That is not an empty slogan, but a base upon which every choice they make strengthens their personality. Looking for power over time. Begin with your self-talk. That includes your internal self-talk too. Change your identity before you change your systems. After all, no matter how well your systems work, your external reality will either meet or fall short of the internal standards you have for yourself. 15.2 You don't discover time confidence, you develop it. Time confidence is not something that just happens to you overnight, rather, it is something that you develop through consistent self-leadership. Those people who seem innately confident about their time did not luck out when it came to confidence, rather. They worked at earning it through follow-through. Each time they held themselves accountable to a boundary, began on time, or completed a commitment, they laid another brick in the wall of their internal confidence structure. Confidence in time is subtle. It isn't about bragging about your productivity. It's about knowing that you will be able to depend on yourself when it matters. It's about knowing that you will take care of your responsibilities regardless of who is watching. This doesn't mean that you're flawless. It means that you get back into alignment sooner when you go off track. You develop time confidence when you start off on a small scale. By making commitments that you can honor, by honoring them until honoring them defines you. Eventually, the noise in your mind will subside, the guilt will evaporate, and the schedule will be a mirror of your power rather than your pressure. This is true confidence. And this is something anybody can achieve through their own efforts. 15.3 How you describe time. Language is creative. You describe time, and that is how time shows up to you. If you are always behind, then you will always be behind. If there is not enough time, then you'll always feel like you're behind. This isn't just mindset psychology. The stories we tell ourselves. You describe yourself in scarcity of time, pressure of time, and failure of time, then that is what your nervous system will respond to. When the time makers speak about time, they do so with confidence, not fear. Sentences like, I'm setting myself up to live in line with my values. I have the freedom to defend my values. I choose how I want to feel today. This isn't just affirmation. This is a commitment. This lets our brain know that we expect clarity and peace. Now, the calendar begins to tell the story. When you make an appointment on your calendar, you are making more than just a meeting. You are forming a relationship with it, and this relationship is shaped by the way you talk. Therefore, think about the language you employ. Pay attention to the story that repeats itself and keeps on haunting you. Is it strengthening or undermining your ability to lead? Rewrite your story. Speak the truth about yourself. And sooner or later, your minutes will heed your voice. 15.4 The pathway to being clear about your time. If you do not have clarity of your emotions, there is no way that you will be clear about your time management. Emotions such as anger, guilt, resentments, and insecurities not only make your emotions murky but your time as well. Lacking emotional coherence leaves you making too many commitments. You say yes in order to avoid the discomfort. That's why emotional clarity is important for time mastery. You have to understand yourself. What makes you feel good and what doesn't? In what ways are you agreeing with things because you're scared? Are you busy because you don't want to deal with reality? It's not an easy question to ask. It's a question that changes how you use your schedule. Because once you identify the emotion, you can clean the lens. Emotions are not something that the time makers avoid. Emotions actually define them. They are the creators of a place where people can express their feelings. They are not only the optimizers, but also the integrators. That is why the calendars of the time makers have not just activities, but integrated activities. 15.5 Time ownership equal to trigger ownership. Time cannot be owned when your emotions continuously get hijacked. It's not the work that sets you off, but rather the trigger beneath the work. The rejection you feel in the email, the insecurity you feel in the meeting, or the challenge you feel due to the need for proof in the delay. Triggers steal your time not because of time taken, but mental bandwidth used. Time makers aren't just creating systems, they create self-awareness. They know their triggers. They know what will disrupt their flow, and they plan for it. For some people, it may be boundaries with particular individuals. For others, it could be altering the environment to help them feel less anxious. But either way, the thing that really matters is that they take accountability. And this is sophisticated time mastery, not just management of hours, but mastery of reactions. And as you get more and more mindful, you gain more and more control over these triggers. Since when you have control over your reactions, you have regained your ability to be in the present moment. 15.6 Without self-trust, you'll be outsources time authority all your life. Without self-trust in managing your time properly, you will always be deferring to something or somebody else on what you should be doing. You will pack your schedule full of other people's agendas, waiting for permission from outside, and letting distractions guide your way. This is not laziness, it is lack of confidence in yourself. The time makers restore the trust consciously. They begin with small steps. They commit themselves to working deeply for 15 minutes and stick to it, keeping their own deadline, completing their usual tasks without any kind of external incentive. With every step they take, they sow the seed, I can trust myself. And with every such seed sowed, they build up the power to say no, to set priorities consciously, and to act intentionally. You don't need to become hyper-disciplined overnight. You just need to build integrity with yourself, one time choice at a time. Because once you begin to trust yourself, you stop looking outside for control. You realize you were never waiting for more time. You were waiting to become someone who knows how to own it. 15.7 Procrastination is not a time issue, it's a truth issue. When we feel like we procrastinate, we tell ourselves that we just don't have the discipline or the drive to get things done. However, procrastination is actually an indicator of an unconscious resistance to move forward. The issue here is not a time one, it's a truth one. Perhaps the job is too difficult. Perhaps failure is scary. Perhaps success isn't deserved. It's not that time makers resist the urge to procrastinate, rather, they give it their ear. They ask themselves, what am I dodging? What feeling does this chore have? What will happen if I fail or succeed? These questions get to the heart of the matter. The stress dissipates because the job is not an amorphous threat anymore, but a decision. To beat procrastination, do not put extra pressure on yourself, but search for the truth. By finding out the truth, you will overcome the resistance. The thing that once held you back becomes the next logical thing to do. This is time command, which goes beyond just ticking off a checklist on your to-do list. Excellence with time needs emotional integrity. Constructing an elegant calendar is not difficult. However, doing so with integrity and authenticity is a totally different story. Planning time for productivity and leisure, for connection and creativity is doable. But when you are emotionally detached, when you say yes out of fear of disappointing someone, overwork because you feel inadequate, or take a break as an escape from reality. Your time does not reflect alignment but performance. Time emotional integrity entails being truthful about one's reasons for doing what he or she is doing. One needs to be able to say, "I need rest," without an apology. One needs to be able to start a difficult project despite the loud voices inside one's head. Being able to cancel something should not be done through avoidance, but by recognizing that it doesn't fit the season. Time creators are not using their timekeeping methods to show off. Rather, they use them for staying true to who they are. It is because they tell the truth, and it is the truth that enables them to build sustainable momentum and unstoppable execution. 15.9. The best schedules are constructed with mercy, not scorn. The vast majority of people attempt to solve their problem with time management by being hard on themselves. "I'm just lazy. I should have known that. How come I am not more consistent?" But shame is not an agent for building discipline, it builds weakness. As you criticize your way to productivity, you grow afraid of failure, hide errors, and crumble when your system fails you. Here's where time makers are different. They aren't hard on themselves because they blew an opportunity, they learn from their mistake. They ask, "What was the problem here? How should I change this? What have I learned about my own style?" For time makers, everything that goes wrong becomes a learning experience, and definitely not proof that they are messed up. Compassion makes you resilient. It allows you to grow and get better without destroying your self-respect. Self-respect will make you consistent. Want to take control of your schedule? Start with changing your internal dialogue. Be the coach and not the critic of yourself. The more compassion you show towards your time management skills, the more influence you will have in the future decision-making. 15.10. Self-respect is reflected in the way you protect your time. Protecting your time is not just a practical step, it is an emotional statement. Each time you reject something that does not add any value to your life, you are affirming yourself and your future. Each time you protect time for reflecting on, relaxing, or doing things that matter to you, you are proclaiming that you are valuable. Time makers are not rude or hard to reach. Rather, they are being true to the reality that every wasted minute is one less hour of fulfilling their ultimate purpose. They no longer apologize for placing themselves first as they fulfill the person they want to become. This doesn't mean they are selfish, rather, they are balanced. Your boundaries of time not only let other people know how you should be treated, but teach you how you should treat yourself. If you always keep rearranging your priorities, it is not because you are disorganized, but because you are disrespecting your possibilities. Treat your time not as something that has to be fulfilled, but as a declaration of your belief of who you really are. 15.11. Inner leadership is key to time mastery. In this section, you've learned something much more profound than techniques, strategies, or calendars. You've been exposed to the truth that time mastery is an inside-out process. Your ability to be disciplined is dependent on your character. Your ability to be consistent is limited by your self-awareness. And your ability to develop rhythm depends on your ability to maintain your identity. The breakthrough comes from going beyond managing time to leading it. It has been revealed to you that who you are shapes all of your decisions regarding time. Language shapes your understanding of time. Clear emotions will be your guide. No longer will triggers, procrastination, and disorganization be a problem, but instead an opportunity to grow. It has been revealed to you that compassion will be your consistency. Respect for yourself will provide you with structure. Time is not something to measure productivity, but leadership. Leadership of time doesn't mean controlling each and every minute. Instead, it means that you are leading yourself so clearly that time responds to you and no longer ignores you. And once this transition takes place, it won't just be management of time, but living your days with intention, grace, and power. 15.12. Clarity is the most underappreciated method of being productive. Productivity is measured in terms of speed, efficiency, and the number of tasks that can be checked off the list before lunch. However, to be productive and not clear at the same time is to move in the wrong direction. Yes, you may be working a lot, but you will not be productive. You will just be reacting, which is different from creating. The time makers do not chase after motion, they chase after meaning. They know that an hour that is dedicated to focus can accomplish much more than 10 hours of chaos. They're not asking themselves each morning, what is urgent, but rather what is aligned. Everything changes. Decisions get easier. Noise is filtered out. False duties fall off and true purpose emerges. Clarity is a sieve. Clarity allows you to decline, accept, or stop doing something with a clear conscience. If clarity becomes your primary goal, then suddenly you start using your time in a better way. Actions become easier, and your schedule starts speaking the truth instead of the pressure. 15.13 Uncertainty makes you react by default. Uncertainty of time can be very harmful. When you are not sure about what should be prioritized, everything suddenly becomes urgent. All messages seem to be urgent, all distractions valid. You end up spending your days reacting and managing chaos rather than making decisions. And as time passes, you find yourself thinking that this chaos is the norm for you. You think you are bad with time. Time makers don't start the day with an unlimited list of to-dos. Time makers start by being purposefully intentional about their most important activities. They have figured out what it is that, when done exceptionally well, makes the difference. This becomes their armor. This protects them from the tyranny of doing it all. It liberates them to go deep versus wide. Should you ever find yourself so busy that your schedule is filled to the brim, take a moment to ask yourself, what is it that I really want to accomplish today? And until you have asked yourself that question, you do not have to plan the hour, begin the race, or jump into the river, because reactivity does not equal busyness. Reactivity equals lack of clarity. Decision, the bridge to clarity. You can journal, contemplate, and brainstorm all day long, but without making a decision, there will never be any clarity. Clarity is not an emotion, it is a choice. When you decide that something is important, something where you are heading, or something that you are doing next, that is what clarity is all about. Time makers do not seek to navigate their way toward clarity. Time makers decide their way into it. Time makers do not wait until things are certain before acting. Time makers create clarity through action. Time makers decide and then act, and it is through that decision and action that things become clear that would otherwise have remained forever hidden had they been left to endless contemplation. Indecision is the great enemy of time, treading water while the time goes by. However, once you decide, even if you make a poor decision, it will put you into action, and action creates insight. So don't wait until the fog clears. Don't wait until the perfect moment. Decide now and lead yourself into clarity. 15.15 Vision illuminates your days. In the absence of vision, days are burdened. There is less significance for what we do. There is no sense of urgency for our goals. Distractions become tempting. However, when one lives by vision, when one has a clear picture of where he/she is going and what he/she is becoming, his/her days are made significant. Not in a way that drains energy, but in a way that anchors. Time makers don't consider vision something that's done once in 3 months. They live with it each day. They are constantly reminding themselves about it. They make their environment reflect on it. The wallpaper, the journal, the rituals, the conversations, everything reflects a higher purpose. And this is why they do more than just work, they work within context. When you forget your vision, your day becomes one of survival. When you remember it, your day becomes sacred. Each and every task becomes important because they all contribute to a higher story. And when your time is spent in pursuit of a story beyond just the stress, your life begins to find its purpose. 15.16 True clarity is gained through alignment, not perfection. Perfection is not required. Precision is not essential. What is needed is alignment. Alignment occurs when your decisions align with your values, when your yeses align with what you really desire, when your time and your spirit are going in the same direction. That's where clarity comes from, not from controlling your time, but from alignment. Time masters are never striving for perfection. They are striving for alignment. They ask themselves, is this schedule aligned? Is this week living up to the person I claim to be? Is what I am creating truly my life? And if not, they make changes because they need to be aligned, not because they have to feel ashamed of themselves. They are not trying to do everything. They are trying to do the things that are aligned with their purpose. Perfection is the pitfall that makes you paralyzed. Alignment is the compass that makes you progress. It allows you the freedom to take a step forward without solving all the variables. Hence, if you want to see things clearly, do not try to become perfect, rather, choose what's true for you. And then structure your time around that truth, and notice how things start falling in place. 15.17 Being overwhelmed is a sign that your priorities aren't clear. Feeling overwhelmed does not necessarily imply having too many things to do. Often, it implies that you haven't yet managed to prioritize the important things. It's not the burden of your duties, but the lack of clear priorities as to where to start, what should be done, and what shouldn't. Without that clarity, everything will feel overwhelming. For those who make time, feeling overwhelmed is not a weakness. It is a lesson they have learned. They step aside and reflect on the situation. What is necessary? What distracts me? What needs to be done right away? Such thoughts bring clarity amidst the chaos. There is no need for them to feel calm. They gain clarity from doing so. The remedy to feeling overwhelmed is not more energy. It is not working harder or later. It is prioritizing better. It is having the courage and ruthlessness to know what really matters and putting everything else aside. Why? Because once you understand your objective, the pressure no longer applies. Overwhelming feelings feed on ambiguity, but clarity? 15.18 When you speak with clarity, people will follow without compulsion. Titles aren't followed, clarity is followed. It's followed when someone is able to articulate the direction, the purpose, and the way to get there. Whatever you're leading, a team, a family, even yourself, the greatest guide is clarity. It requires no compulsion. It demands no coercion. It just attracts alignment since people are drawn toward clarity that comes from vision and truth. Time makers know that clarity is the key that ensures everything else is coherent.
Meetings are more concise. Communication is more efficient. Energy drains get plugged. Conflict decreases. It's not magic. It's an outcome of being clear in public and consistent. Clarity starts in the private realm first. How you plan, how you guard your time, how you model clarity, focus, and intention. When you want others to follow you, you don't need to be louder, you need to be clearer. To the point where other people can walk confidently on the road of their own clarity. This is leading with time, by being clear rather than maximizing your time. 15.19 You can't access clarity in chaos. You must create margin. Clarity needs space to breathe. It cannot emerge when your schedule is packed to the edges, your mind is always racing, and your days are running on fumes. Clarity requires margin, mental, emotional, and physical. Without it, you're not thinking, you're reacting. You're not designing, you're defending. And clarity becomes a luxury you never get around to experiencing. Time makers safeguard margin as an asset of strategy. They don't perceive empty time as empty time. They view it as sacred. It is in this margin that the visions come into being and wisdom gets expressed. Margin is the place where creativity comes from. Margin is needed for evaluation, contemplation, and listening to what has been going on inside you but not being heard amid all the din. Create some breathing room. Create space that has only the purpose of being idle. Do not do this only every quarter but do this every week, perhaps every day, in bits and pieces. This is because sometimes when there is nothing planned it becomes the time to restructure everything. 15.20 Clarity does not have to be a loud one. Sometimes it is just a whisper of understanding. Clarity should always come across as dramatic, either a sudden flash, an important announcement or even a great breakthrough. However, it is at those moments that we will get one of the clearest experiences that one gets when clarity is a whisper, something that does not require any explanation as such. It is something that should not be announced to a crowd. Unlike timekeepers, time makers are people of action who act upon their own convictions. They know how to discern noise from knowing, fear from truth, and pressure from purpose. This is the reason why they are able to act without needing to validate themselves from an external source all the time. Begin to listen to that knowing. Perhaps, it does not make sense to other people at this point. Maybe, it goes against the popular belief of the masses. Yet, clarity does not need consensus, it needs courage. And the more that you begin to hear that quiet clarity, the more that you make a loud impact in this world. Not by making noise, but by being so aligned in yourself that you become a loud clarity to the world. 15.21 Clarity is not the destination but a discipline. The majority believes that clarity is some kind of revelation, and after discovering it, you have found everything needed. However, clarity is not the final destination but a process, a discipline, a practice. It is not about becoming clear, but about remaining clear. Remaining clear requires returning. Continually returning to your mission, your values, your message. Returning back to your essence in spite of everything and everyone that may distract from your essence. Time makers use clarity as their tool, their instrument. They examine themselves at least once a week. They ask themselves each day whether they are still aligned, whether this is still valid and whether their schedule is aligned with their purpose. It is not a rhetorical question, but a technique to navigate through the stormy life. The more consistent you do it, the simpler it is to correct your course when circumstances change. Clarity does not come naturally in a distracted world. Create room for it, cultivate it, practice it, because in a distracting world, clarity is not a natural state. It is an intentional practice. And as you practice it, time will no longer dictate what you do, rather, it will begin to respond to who you have become. 15.22 Summary. The strongest time decisions are made from clarity within. In this chapter, you have been introduced to what time leadership is really all about. It is not merely external structures or sophisticated models but rather clarity within. It is the practice of self-awareness, discernment, and protection of your clarity in your schedule. You have been made aware that clarity does not come, but is made, through identity, decision, emotions, and courage. Now you know that it's not about being too busy, that it's an issue of lack of clarity. That being reactive means that your inner compass is out of order. That clarity sheds light on the darkest of weeks. That leading through time doesn't begin with extra hours. It begins with making better decisions. And that the ultimate version of your life can only come about if you
declare, "This is what I'm creating. This is what I'm choosing." Clarity is not a nice to have. It's your time resource. And the more you safeguard it, the more grounded your days will be, no longer driven by fear or noise, but by intentionally spent time. Great job, everyone. Today we learned the secret: balance. Plan your study time, enjoy your playtime, and don't waste either. Small habits today equal to big success tomorrow. Thanks for being here and paying attention. Have a productive day.